It's a crisp Sunday evening in March 1964. The streets of a small American town are quiet, the kind where kids play outside until dusk without a worry. A 12-year-old girl, full of innocence and joy, waves goodbye to her grandmother after a family visit. She starts walking home a short, familiar path she's taken 100 times before, but she never makes it. Vanishes into thin air. 4 agonizing days later, the unthinkable is discovered. For over 6 decades, her story haunted a community with no answers, no justice. Then, in 2026, a miracle of modern science happened. Investigators pulled a sample of DNA so minuscule 0.4 nanograms, smaller than a speck of dust, invisible to the human eye, and it unlocked the truth. This isn't just any cold case. It's the oldest homicide ever solved using DNA technology, 61 years in the making. This is the story of Mary Theresa Simpson. A tale of loss, perseverance, and a breakthrough that defies belief. How did a tiny, forgotten fragment from 1964 point to a killer no one suspected? And what does it mean for the thousands of unsolved cases still out there? Stick around, you won't believe the twists. Let's go back to where it all began. Let's set the scene properly. Elmira, New York, in 1964. Nestled along the Shinano River in the southern Tier region, it was a classic blue-collar town. About 40,000 residents, mostly working in factories, railroads, or small businesses. Think of it as the heart of mid-century America, where neighbors waved hello, doors were left unlocked, and community was everything. The Vietnam War was just heating up on the news, but in Elmira, life felt safe, predictable. That was the world of Mary Theresa Simpson. Born around 1951 or 1952, she was the middle child in a loving, close-knit family. Her parents worked hard to provide, and Mary was known for her bright smile, her kindness, and her love of simple things like drawing pictures or helping around the house. She wasn't a troublemaker. She was just a normal kid, full of potential, on that fateful Sunday. March 15, 1964. Mary did what she often did, walked a short distance to visit her grandmother and other relatives near the intersection of East Market Street and Harriet Street. It was a routine visit, maybe sharing stories, eating a snack. Around 6:30 p.m., as the light started to fade and a chill crept into the air, she said her goodbyes and began the walk home. The path was straightforward, through familiar neighborhoods. No reason to think anything could go wrong. But as the hours ticked by, worry set in. Mary's father, sensing something was off, reported her missing to the Elmira Police Department that very evening. In those days, there were no cell phones, no instant alerts. Officers sprang into action the old-fashioned way, pounding the pavement, knocking on doors, interviewing anyone who might have seen a girl in a simple dress walking alone. The community rallied. Neighbors formed search parties, scouring parks, alleys, and wooded areas. Local radio stations broadcast descriptions. 12 years old, about 4 feet tall, brown hair, wearing everyday clothes. Flyers were printed and posted on telephone poles and store windows. Everyone hoped it was just a mix-up, maybe she got lost or stayed longer at a friend's house. 4 long, excruciating days passed. Hope began to dim. On March 19th, a local man out hiking with his 2 young sons in a secluded wooded area near Combs Hill Road and nearby Southport, about 7 miles from Mary's home, stumbled upon something no parent ever wants to find. He called the authorities immediately. Investigators arrived, cordoned off the area. The medical examiner confirmed the heartbreaking truth. Mary Theresa was no longer alive. This wasn't an accident or a runaway situation. It was foul play, a homicide that shook Elmira to its core. The scene was processed meticulously. Photographs taken, physical traces collected, her clothing carefully bagged and preserved. In 1964, forensic science was basic, no high-tech labs, no genetic testing, but the detectives knew to document everything thoroughly. storing items in secure, temperature-controlled conditions. Who knows, they thought, maybe someday technology will catch up. The news hit like a thunderbolt. Parents across Elmira kept their kids indoors, questioning the safety they once took for granted. Whispers spread. Was it a stranger? Someone local? The community mourned together. Mary's funeral was packed with family, friends, and even strangers touched by the tragedy. Her older sister, who was just 16 at the time, later opened up about the raw pain in interviews. I tried to jump into the grave with her. I wanted to be with her so badly. The world just stopped. The Simpson family was devastated, holidays empty, birthdays bittersweet. They held on to memories of Mary's laughter, but the unanswered questions gnawed at them. Who? Why? Detectives dove in deep. They interviewed hundreds of people, neighbors, schoolmates, distant relatives, even delivery drivers. Every lead was chased. Suspicious vehicles spotted that evening, alibis checked. State police and federal agents lent a hand. But as weeks turned to months, the trail went cold. No clear suspect. No motive. The file was shelved, but never forgotten. Decades rolled by. The 1960s became the 1970s. Elmira saw economic shifts, factories closing. The 1980s brought new detectives reviewing old notes. But Mary's case lingered in the shadows, a quiet reminder of unresolved grief. Little did anyone know, a silent piece of evidence from that wooded scene was waiting, preserved in a freezer, holding a secret that would take revolutionary science to unlock. What happened next changed everything. As the years stacked up, forensic science leaped forward. By the early 2000s, DNA profiling had become a powerhouse in criminal investigations. Think of it as a genetic fingerprint that could link scenes to suspects. In 2003, experts at the New York State Police Forensic Investigation Center dusted off Mary's preserved evidence. They focused on biological traces on her clothing, extracting a partial DNA profile with the tools available then. This profile was uploaded to CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System, a national database that compares crime scene DNA to known offenders or connects unsolved cases across states. Everyone held their breath. No match. Undeterred, they resubmitted it in 2014, as CODIS expanded and algorithms got smarter. Still, nothing. The profile sat there, a digital ghost, waiting for a connection that didn't come. But here's where the story gets fascinating. That evidence from 1964 had been stored so carefully in a police freezer that it remained viable. No degradation. It was like a time capsule, a silent witness refusing to fade. Imagine a tiny fragment captured in the moment of tragedy, holding onto its secrets through wars, presidencies, and technological revolutions that enter the 2020s. And a game-changing innovation, investigative genetic genealogy. This isn't your standard DNA match. It's like turning detective with family trees. Instead of relying on criminal databases, it taps into public ancestry sites, places like Ancestry.com or GEDmatch, where millions upload their DNA to find lost relatives. Scientists take a profile, find distant matches like third cousins, and build massive family trees, sometimes spanning thousands of people. Going back to the 1800s, it's painstaking, like piecing together a giant puzzle. This method had already cracked famous cases, like the Golden State Killer in California, where a serial offender was identified through relatives' DNA uploads. It gave hope to cold cases everywhere. In late 2022, Sergeant William Goodwin, an Elmira investigator with a passion for unsolved mysteries, saw the potential for Mary's case. He'd reviewed the file countless times, feeling the weight of the family's pain. He secured a grant for advanced testing, partnering with the FBI for extra muscle. They sent the remaining sample a mere 0.4 nanograms. So small it's invisible without magnification to Optum Technologies. a cutting-edge lab in Texas that specializes in impossible DNA. From degraded or tiny sources, Othram used their forensic-grade genome sequencing to amplify and reconstruct the profile. It was uploaded to genealogy databases. Weeks of analysis followed. A familial match popped up, not a direct hit, but a thread through extended relatives. The team went to work. FBI genealogists, New York State police experts, and even students and faculty from Russell Sage College's Criminal Investigation Resource Center. They constructed an enormous family tree, branches twisting through census records, birth certificates, old newspapers. It took months, cross-referencing thousands of connections. The path narrowed to one man, Alfred Raymond Murray, Jr., born around 1931 in the Elmira area. A truck driver by trade, he lived locally, raised a family, and blended into everyday life. He died in 2004 at about 73 years old. Shockingly, there was no known link to Mary Theresa or her family, no shared friends, no overlapping paths. His name had never even appeared in the 1964 investigation files. He was a ghost in the system. To verify, investigators approached a living relative, Murray's son, and requested a voluntary DNA sample. It confirmed a familial tie to the evidence, but certainty demanded more. So in a move straight out of the thriller, they obtained a court order and exhumed Murray's remains from his grave. In November 2025, under careful supervision, forensic anthropologists exhumed Alfred Murray's remains. New DNA samples were extracted and compared directly to the 1964 evidence. The lab ran rigorous tests, double-checking every step. The results? Conclusive. The match was statistically irrefutable. The probability it belonged to anyone else was less than 1 in 320 billion. That's like picking one specific grain of sand from all the beaches on Earth. On February 10, 2026, the Elmira Police Department held a press conference at the Chinook County District Attorney's Office. Chief Kristen Thorne stepped to the podium, flanked by partners from the FBI, New York State Police, Russell Sage College, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC. Today marks a historic moment, she declared. After 61 years, the investigation into the homicide of Mary Theresa Simpson is resolved. The individual responsible is Alfred Raymond Murray, Jr. She praised the collaboration, Othram's tech wizardry, the genealogy team's detective work, and the original 1964 officer's foresight in preservation. Sergeant Goodwin, emotional but steady, added, "This case was carried by generations of investigators. Many aren't here to see this, but their work lives on. We never stopped believing answers were possible." NCMEC representatives emphasized the victim-centered approach, keeping the family informed privately, respecting their privacy. A faculty member from Russell Sage College noted how student involvement in the family tree mapping bridged education and real justice. The most heart-wrenching part? A statement from Mary's surviving sister. "For decades, we lived in a fog of what-ifs. I remember trying to jump into her grave at the funeral. I couldn't bear the thought of leaving her alone. Now knowing the truth, we have closure. It doesn't bring Mary back, but it lets us honor her memory without the shadows. We're forever grateful." The announcement rippled outward. Local media exploded with headlines. 61-year-old cold case cracked. Elmira residents, many who grew up hearing whispers of the story, shared reflections online. One said, "It reminds us that Elmira is resilient. We take care of our own." Even after all this time, quiet tributes appeared. Flowers at Combs Hill Road. Trees planted in Mary's name, nationally. This became the oldest homicide solved via DNA and genetic genealogy, eclipsing cases like Bear Brook in New Hampshire, where victims were identified after decades through similar trees. It spotlighted Othram's role in 80 New York resolutions alone. Law enforcement agencies took notes, auditing cold case evidence, pushing for more grants. NCMEC used it to advocate for families, stressing that prolonged uncertainty is a trauma of its own. What lessons emerge? First, preserve evidence, no matter how old. That 1964 freezer saved the day. Second, science evolves. What seems impossible today might be routine tomorrow. Third, never underestimate human determination. Sergeant Goodwin's push, the team's collaboration. For the Simpson family, it's bittersweet. They held a private memorial, sharing stories of Mary's joy. Her photo, a girl with a radiant smile, now symbolizes hope. And for unsolved cases everywhere. This proves justice can wait, but it doesn't forget. If a speck of DNA can rewrite history after 61 years, imagine what's next. If this story moved you, think about the family still waiting. Contact NCMEC or the FBI with any tips. Your info could be the breakthrough. Thanks for joining me on this journey. Like, subscribe for more true crime stories where science meets mystery. Comment below, which cold case do you hope DNA solves next? See you in the next video.